When my family and I first moved from St. Paul to Minneapolis, specifically on the north side, we rented a pretty big house, and it was quite nice. It had 6 bedrooms, 2 floors, and there were 2 sets of stairs that we could take to get upstairs. One by the living room and one by the bathroom and kitchen. The stairs, both of them, in my opinion, were the scariest part of the house because what made them so scary was that they were similar to the Japanese horror movie Ju-on, aka The Grudge. Anyways, after months since we moved into the house, my mom and I were not always home because most of the time we would sleep over at my dad's place. My cousins would come over, stay with my brothers and sister, and they would play hide and seek. One night, when my mom and I were gone to my dad's, my cousins and brothers were playing hide and seek tag at night with all the lights off in the house. While they were playing, one of my older brothers was it, and as he looked around the house, going up and down the stairs, he felt as if there was someone following him. He looked back, but there was no one else there. Later on, I think it was him who tagged one of my cousins, and my cousin found someone, thinking it was one of my brothers. He tagged him and said, "Alright man, I got you." And that someone just looked at him with a weird look, like when someone opens their eyes really big and wide looking at you. After that, things just didn't feel right, and they were all kind of getting the chills, so they decided to turn all the lights back on and stop the game. Not long after that, I think, it was once again one of those nights when my mom and I left again for my dad's. When we first moved into the house, my brothers and sisters would always sleep in the living room. On that night, my older sister slept on the couch while everybody slept on the ground. She saw something that was running around in the house. The next thing she knew, she couldn't move at all and felt like there was something sitting on her chest. When she looked, it was a baby, and it said to her that it wanted milk. My sister was scared to death, and she just fell asleep. Sometime later, after that happened, she saw the baby again, and it said the same exact thing like it did the first time. This time, my sister responded and said that she could not comply to the baby's wishes. The baby then said that it was going to go far away and that it'll never come back ever again. Since then, things were okay for my older sister. As the youngest child and the son of the family, at a young age from 6 to 7, or maybe even 8 I guess, I heard that before we moved into that house, there was another Hmong family who lived there. There was a mother who was pregnant, and from what I heard, she gave birth to one of the kids in the bedrooms upstairs. Unfortunately, that kid didn't make it. I guess that's why my older sister saw the baby and then asked her for some milk. Ever since I found out about that incident, I found out that the house that my family and I moved in and rented was haunted. About 5 to 7 years later, during my 6th grade year, I started sharing a bedroom upstairs with one of my older brothers, the room right across from the room where the Hmong woman gave birth to the baby. In our room, we had a bunk bed, so I slept on the top one and he slept on the bottom one. One night, while I was sleeping, I woke up in the middle of the night in bed. I turned to my right side, which was where the door was, and I saw something standing there by the door. I lifted my head just up a little bit and thought to myself, it's probably nothing, and went back to bed. But then I had second thoughts, so I rubbed my eyes, blinked a few times, and tried to get a better look this time. As I looked, it was a woman in white with long black hair. My heart started beating so fast, and I just got so scared that I had to put the blanket over my head, and I slept like that throughout the whole entire night. The next morning when I got up, I wasn't really sure if I saw it. It was probably just my imagination that got the best of me, that's what I thought. Even till this day, I'm not too sure if I really saw it. In late 2009, my family decided to move back to St. Paul, but this time, most likely to Maplewood. When we were going to move, I was told by my older brother not to mention the word move in Hmong because we didn't want whatever it was to follow us to our new home. So, we decided to say go, instead of move. After everybody had already moved out of the house, it was just only me and my mom left in the house. There would be times when I would be home alone and I would hear the sound of someone walking on the stairs, but not loudly though, just very faint and quiet. I would get very scared and just play some video games and turn up the volume as loud as I could. Eventually we moved out, but to this day I still have dreams of that house from time to time. My mom used to work for a company located in northeast Minneapolis. She worked with a few Hmong women and naturally became good friends with them. She also worked with this blonde white woman. My mom said that the lady always had problems with her boyfriend and he would show up to work and harass her. One day, the lady's boyfriend showed up to work and they got into a physical altercation and he killed her in the woman's bathroom. I assumed that he was convicted of the murder, but my mom doesn't know. Time passed and their annual potluck rolled around. The building consisted of 2 levels, the ground level, which is the main level where they do all the work, and then the basement, where the offices and lunchroom are located. In order to get to the lunchroom, you have to walk down the hall past all the offices, and the lunchroom is located at the very end of the hallway. It was the end of the day and my mom's friend wanted to grab her big pot that she brought in for the potluck. Often, the managers and supervisors leave for the day and the other employees are all upstairs finishing their work. She made her way down the stairs and as she was walking past the offices, she just so happened to look into one of the rooms for one of the Hmong supervisors and saw the back of the dead lady sitting in a chair. My mom's friend saw this and immediately turned around and ran up the stairs to tell everyone. Well, just her Hmong friends, otherwise everyone else would think she was crazy. She said that she ran up the stairs so fast and skipped so many flights that she almost tripped and fell. Because of this, she decided to get her pot tomorrow morning. After that incident, whenever anyone would go use the bathroom, they would be terrified to go alone. As they sat in the bathroom stall through the cracks of the door, they would see the dead lady who was standing in the bathroom in front of the sinks and mirror, looking at herself and fixing her hair. The company ended up relocating and the building is now being used as a museum. Do you know what the placebo effect is? It's a term coined in the medical field that suggests if you believe strongly enough in a certain practice, magic can happen. For example, if you are depressed and believe beer is going to solve your problem, voila, you just cured yourself of depression. The story I'm about to share comes from a lunchtime conversation between my supervisor and a couple of his subordinates, which include me. I used to work in a large warehouse, and at the far end of this warehouse, there is a small corner room where some elderly Hmong ladies sit to piece together pourers for liquor bottles. One morning, a former employee would come in super early to get a head start on her current task of the day. At this time of the day, the only light on is the safety light to dim the way. There, she sat working away until she heard the far end door open and shut. At this time, she would assume that it was our manager, who is also an early bird, think 6:30 a.m. However, no light came on. Funny, the manager always turned the light on whenever he came in. She brushed this thought aside until she heard the noise again. This time, she walked back to the door and checked. No one was around. She peeked outside, took a stroll around and found nothing. She goes back to the door and in the tiny window, she sees 2 eyes looking back at her. Creeped out, she waits in her car and for everyone to arrive. Now, this was just the beginning of the encounter experiences. Another one of my buddies explained that he would go upstairs to pick items and would hear someone and feel someone breathing on his shoulder. Not too long after that, I started to feel something watching me. I too started to hear noises and bumps around the warehouse where people weren't present. Footsteps, breathing, a tense feeling of paranoia. Whether I'm hearing these footsteps and breathing as a reality was questionable. I guess I believed in the stories so much that they started to become a mental reality. The lesson of the day: don't let paranoia get the best of you. When I was 5, we moved into a 2-story gray house on 35th Boulevard. We had a neighbor who, at night, would cry and scream until very late. In the morning, we would always see him asleep on his front porch. A week after we moved into our new house, he moved out, and the house was boarded up for some reason. I had an older brother who was 8 at the time, 2 twin boys who were 4, and an unborn sibling on the way. As kids, we would often go to that neighbor's yard and play. There was a huge tree in front of the neighbor's garage that we would always climb. A month later, we had our first paranormal experience. One summer day, my siblings and I were playing in the neighbor's yard again. Since no one had moved there after the previous owner left, no one had told us not to play there. As the sun started to set and it began to get darker, my little brother, one of the twins, wanted to go home and started crying. As he cried, I wasn't too sure if others heard it too, but I started to hear other voices crying along with him from inside the neighbor's garage. You know, the cry of little newborn babies that you hear at the hospital? That's how it sounded. One after another, the crying sound got louder. I got scared, so I took my little brother home. After that, we still played there, but I would always go back home before dark. My older brother, though, would stay there until after dark. We stopped playing there after he fell off the tree and broke 2 ribs and his ankle. After that incident, we started to have cats coming into our backyard, making our chickens go crazy every night. In the morning, we would find dead chickens. I remember always hearing my mom curse about how she was gonna kill the cats that would kill our chickens. This went on for a couple of weeks until my dad got fed up with it. They tried putting water-filled bottles around our yard, but nothing happened. One day, my dad decided to camp out and kill the cats that kept killing our chickens. What he saw, though, looked like a black cat but was a lot bigger than a normal cat. My dad shot at it, but since it was dark and we had bushes against the fence, he couldn't find it, so he left it alone and was going to search for it in the morning. The next morning, wanting to show how cool of a dad he was, he made all of us go into the backyard as he searched for the animal, but came up empty. There was no trace of blood anywhere, but since we watered the ground the night before, we only saw footprints, which looked like small little human feet, but with only 4 toes all over. Things got weird from then on. The last week before summer vacation ended, the whole family slept together in the living room downstairs. We were watching Finding Nemo since it just came out, when suddenly we heard people running upstairs. It sounded like there were multiple people and not just one running back and forth up and down the stairs. My dad went upstairs thinking it was robbers, but no one was there and all the windows were locked. We lived there for almost a year before moving out, and there's a lot more experiences to tell, but it would make this a very long story because our neighbors also experienced similar things and worse. 35th Boulevard, don't go there, guys. This happened in the Minneapolis area. My family moved to this 4-story home, and it was kind of on the ghetto side, but the house was pretty nice. Anyways, I always have one of my sisters sleep with me because I get scared. It's not like I'm going to say that because they'll tease me since I'm the oldest, but it was this one morning where I woke up and my sister, who was supposed to stay with me, was gone. She's an early bird, so she probably went downstairs with the rest of my siblings. I have very bad anxiety, and I get paranoid easily. I was chilling on my iPod, and then all of a sudden, my door opened. No one came in. It was opened by 2 inches, so there was a little crack. I could see the sunlight coming in, but no one was standing there. I got freaked out, so I said, "Mai, is that you?" There was no reply, and then the door shut itself. I got really freaked out, and it was a what the heck kind of moment. At this point, my anxiety was getting to me, and I know how bad it could get if I got too afraid or nervous. I stood up on my bed, waiting for the next thing to happen. Then, my bedroom door opened again. Still, there was no one. By now, I was afraid something really bad was going to happen. I was ready to scream if anything bad was going to happen, but I could not find my voice. Then the door shut by itself again. I knew then that it couldn't have been any of my siblings, so I called my sister up. I was too afraid to open the door myself. She came in and said, "What?" I yelled at her for leaving me alone when she knew she was supposed to stay with me until I woke up. I asked if it was her or anyone else that was up here. She said no. That's when I crapped my pants, but I grabbed my stuff and ran down the stairs with her. I later told my mom, and she was quiet. My mom also experienced scary stuff because she would get sat on and see stuff ever since she was a child. She didn't say much, but told my sister to stay with me until I woke up. I haven't encountered anything after that. This was in 2016 in Minneapolis when it happened. I was overwhelmed with depression and had a hard time figuring out what I should be doing to make things right to make my marriage work. I tried my best to do everything, but it seemed like nothing was ever enough for her. Damn, bro. I had been having a lot of dreams, wandering off into open lands and getting away, leaving everything behind until one morning, I had a visit. The sun was barely rising when my alarm went off at 5:30. I shut it off and laid flat in bed with my eyes open staring at the ceiling. Then, out of nowhere, a lady's voice said, "Son?" I turned my head to the left and saw 6 middle-aged women around their early 40s standing next to my bedside. I took a well-examined look at each and every single one of them, but did not recognize them. I responded in Hmong, "Who are you people?" Then, the lady in a green sweatshirt standing in front of the group with a calm voice said, "We are your grandmas. Don't you want to come with us? We came to take you with us because we saw you crying. Don't be sad. Where we are going, there is no sadness and no worries of life and struggles. It is peaceful and calm. We will be there for you whenever you need us. We will accompany you. Come with us." This lady had the warmest and most calmest voice I had ever heard in my life. The entire time she was speaking to me, she was holding my hand and gently rubbing it like how old Hmong folks do when they talk to you or lecture you about life. Her hand was warm and smooth. Her voice was soothing and sweet. I didn't know her, but I felt like she knew me for a long time. Then a hunch came over me. She's my grandma. My dad's mom passed away when he was 12, so I never knew her. After she finished talking, they all turned around and my room lit up in a blinding white light. They walked into the light and vanished. Yes, the famous white light, but my room was still lit up bright. I thought twice. Should I go? I sat up in bed and stood up. I took one last look at my 3 kids that were sleeping with me, and I saw myself laying there like a lifeless body. An out-of-body experience, if you want to call it that. I turned toward the light where they went in and took a step. Right at that moment, my baby boy let out a cry. I stopped and thought, what the heck am I doing? If I leave, who's going to watch after my kids? I sat back down on the bed and lay back into a lifeless body. I opened my eyes and woke up. I felt a sudden rush of exhaustion and almost puked. My head was ringing, my limbs went numb, and my vision blurry, but I fought it. I reached over for the milk bottle and tried to feed the baby, but he didn't want it. Then my daughter started crying like crazy. I thought to myself, what the heck is going on? Was that real? My daughter didn't usually wake up and cry at all. I looked around my room, and the light started fading until my room became dim again. I asked my kids what did they see and why they were crying, but they didn't say anything. My kids were 3 and 2 at the time, the age where kids usually talk a lot. They just held me tightly and didn't say a word until I got them out of bed and made them breakfast. My grandma didn't come back to tell me to go with her after that. I think she knows that I can't leave yet, but till this day, I still feel like she's waiting for me to go stay with her. I feel her presence every now and then. Just a few months ago, I saw her sitting on the chair in my room when I was sleeping, just sitting there, watching me sleep like I was a baby. I was a bit scared, but nope, it's just Grandma watching over me. Plus, whenever she's around, I feel a very heartwarming vibe. Thank you for listening. Subscribe if you haven't already. Goodbye.